We here with it. We got that high school student that explained the fourth dimension or whatever. I watched. I ain't gonna lie. Probably like a year ago or so. I probably watched a minute of this video just on some educational bored as hell, high as hell type shit. You feel me? But I ain't never watched the full video, so we here with it right now. I want to see what this little nigga gonna say. He probably like grown now, so he ain't no motherfucking Elon Musk. So what happened?
Imagine that this folder is a dimensional plane. Now, assuming that it is no height and no depth, what would this mean? It would mean that it's a one-dimensional world.
Okay,
So if,
and y'all gotta really pay attention. Cause I stopped watching it a long time ago because I wasn't really paying attention. So we gotta really pay attention to what he's saying.
hypothetically, an organism was living inside of it, it would only be able to move in a linear path forward and backwards in a straight line. Now, if we go to the second dimension, we have two dimensions. We have width and we have length. So hypothetically, if an organism lived inside of here, then it would be able to move up, down, left, right, and anywhere else in between. And a two-dimensional world is comprised of an infinite series of one-dimensional worlds stacked upon each other. Just as our three-dimensional world, which has depth and length and height, is comprised of an infinite series of two-dimensional worlds. So this now
Such
that I
as
have
a cube.
stacked many folders upon each other, we have three dimensions. We have depth, we have length, and we have width.
I hope y'all paying attention right now. Please be paying attention.
Now what happens if you keep going on from here on out? We would have a four-dimensional world, but what
Right.
exactly is a fourth dimension? In order to understand this, we need to understand how dimensions are perceived. We live in the three-dimensional world, but despite that, we actually view things to be two-dimensionally. Take a perfect sphere, for example. If you're looking at a sphere, it looks just like a regular two-dimensional circle. The only way
Mm-hmm.
that you can tell it's an actual sphere instead of a circle is because of the hues of light on it. So just like in a two-dimensional world, if a organism in the two-dimensional world was looking upon a circle, the light would make it appear to be lighter at one end and darker in the middle. Also,
Wait, say that
organism in the
again.
two-dimensional world was looking upon a circle. The light would make it appear to be lighter at one end and darker in the middle.
That make okay.
Also, if an object is moving closer and farther away from you, you don't actually perceive that it's getting closer and farther away.
Bigger or
You see
smaller.
that it's getting smaller or larger, and
Mm-hmm.
then you assume that it's getting either farther away or closer.
Right.
But let's say that an object was to grow in perfect equilibrium, so that it was growing at the same speed that it was shrinking as you move it farther away. Then you would not be able to tell, without any lights or if there were details on the object, that it's moving or growing at all. You may have assumed that since we perceive things to be in two dimensions, that a two-dimensional organism would see in one dimension. So, as we're watching this rubber band expand as it moves farther away from this little organism in the two-dimensional world, it does not actually perceive anything is happening to it because it's growing at the same speed that it's moving farther away. But since we can actually see it from the three-dimensional world and perceive things to be in two dimensions, we can see things for how they actually are. The reason that the two-dimensional
Okay.
organism doesn't see things the way they really are is because the two-dimensional organism sees things in one dimension, just how we, three-dimensional creatures, see things in two dimensions. So in a way, we don't really see our world the way it truly is. A four-dimensional creature, however, seeing our three-dimensional world in three dimensions, would be able to see
What we
through things. Would be able to see absolutely everything, just as we could see if there was several organisms spread along a 2D environment on your floor. You would be able to see inside houses. You would be able to see inside of people. So if a two-dimensional world, a flat surface, is just made of an
you be able to see inside of people. What?
infinite amount of lines, then the 3D world is just made out of an infinite amount of planes. So the 4D world, logically, is made out of an infinite amount of 3D objects. Though they're not just put together like you would like building blocks. That's not how the 4D world is. That would just be 3D again.
Right.
So
Right.
in order to
Right. Right.
understand this, we need to understand
Right.
the logical progression of mathematics in our world. Imagine that this connects piece represents the first dimension. It's simply a straight line, which is basically what the first dimension looks like. And if you add three more of these straight lines and
Second
connect them
dimension.
so that adjacent sides are perpendicular and opposite sides are parallel, then you have the basic shape of the second dimension. You have a square.
Right, right.
Now, if you keep going from here
You
and
get
you
a cube.
add it so that there's a total of four
Yeah, make
squares,
a cube.
and all adjacent sides are perpendicular, and all opposite sides are parallel,
It's third
then
dimension.
you end up with, obviously, a cube.
Right. Third dimension.
So if you tried to keep going from here, and you would have a four-dimensional basic shape, you would have a what's called a tesseract. Now I cannot show you a tesseract, but you need to understand that it's basically four cubes that are within each other that have all adjacent sides perpendicular and all opposite sides parallel. Yet there are four lines connecting to each vertex. So a tesseract would look somewhat like this picture. Now that's not exactly what it looks like because this is a two-dimensional depiction, and obviously not all of the lines are straight. So I cannot show you what a tesseract.
Hold on, let's
That's
look
not
again.
exactly what it looks like because this is a two-dimensional depiction, and obviously not all of the lines are straight. So I cannot show you what a tesseract actually looks like because we cannot perceive things in the third dimension. You cannot even imagine what a tesseract looks like. You cannot in your mind picture the fourth dimension or a fourth dimensional shape. And you can keep
Right.
going on from the fourth
Every time I try, I just picture a brick stacked on
dimension, even. You can
stacked
go
on
to the
top of
fifth
each other.
dimension, the sixth dimension, the 71st dimension. It doesn't matter. Theoretically, there are an infinite amount of spatial dimensions. A common misconception of the
Theoretically.
fourth dimension is that the fourth dimension is time. Now, while some argue that by going forward and backwards in time, if you move forward the same distance and backwards the same, then you would end up in the same place you started, just like in the fourth dimension. And while that may seem logical, if you think about it, it really doesn't make sense. If you imply that the fourth dimension is actually time, well, first of all, time is not spatial. There's a difference between space and time, quite obviously. And
Right, yeah.
assuming that all dimensions are according to a pattern, then that doesn't really make sense either, because saying the fourth dimension is time, every dimension has time in it. So that would mean that the fourth dimension is special in some way, which doesn't really make any sense. Another reason this doesn't make sense is that we very, very, very slightly travel through time whenever we move due to the distance that light takes to get to our body. Now, if a group of astronauts were to get in a spaceship and they were to go very, very, very close to the speed of light, then they would,
Which is not possible to do with this technology we got. This shit 13 years old and they still can't do it.
and they went around in this impossible, nearly the speed of light spaceship for a few months, and then afterwards they returned to Earth. They would find that Earth had actually progressed a few years, so they had moved forward in time by moving that quickly.
They move forward in time by moving that quickly. That's crazy.
Another interesting concept involving the fourth dimension is that many physicists and even mathematicians may say that the dimensions are very, very slightly curved. Because if you really think about it, nothing can be truly, absolutely infinite. So imagine that the first dimension, the line, is just very, very slightly curved, so that after a very long time, it will end up creating a circle.
Circle, right?
So, as suggested by many physicists, if you keep
Hey man, where little bro at nowadays?
going in the same
I was
direction,
saying,
then you
when I sound like this, he gotta be going places.
will end up where you started after a very, very long amount of time, obviously. And the same thing would happen to the second dimension.
I said little bro like he ain't older than me, right?
If it's just a square, and then you
I said
extend it
fuck.
very, very slightly in a curve, then it will eventually make a sphere. And the same thing happens in our dimension, except it will form a very, very slightly curved third dimension, which will form a four-dimensional universe, basically. So, what this kind of means is that our three dimensional world is within a four dimensional world, and the four dimensional world is within a fifth dimensional world, and so on.
So on, right?
Now, I did say that nothing can be truly infinite, but if this is true, and a dimension is really within another dimension, within another dimension, within another dimension, then I'm implying that there's an infinite amount of dimensions, which is the only problem I really have with this theory. I'm not sure if it ever stops or if infinity is really even possible. We don't know that. Thanks for watching my video, and I hope this gave you a better idea of what the fourth dimension is.
Definitely did, little bro. It definitely did,
Wait,
bro.
wait, wait, stop. Don't.
No, shut up, bro. I'm definitely skipping. Hold on, we gonna see if he got any more videos out first, though. Hat guy. Taking on self-enforcing consequences of drug abuse. Drug abuse. Come on, bro. This shit old as hell. Okay, let me know if y'all want me to do any other videos by him. Cause as of right now, I don't see none that's worth it.